I think it's this.
There
There.
you go.
Oh my
Much
God.
easier.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm scared. Thank
The intro to
you.
tell.
I know, right? Thank you for doing this interview for me.
Yes.
I am in a trauma class, so I am on the trauma focus path versus
Okay.
the marriage and family. I'm not doing that. Um
I chose not to do that either.
so for this assignment we have to interview a trauma focused therapist, basically get some background information, why you're doing it, what you like about it, what are some challenges, how you're integrating different aspects of your life into the trauma therapy. So I'm going to start off with just asking a random question, even though I know your name. Your name, and your credentials.
My name is Kelsey Wargo. I have a Master's of Arts. I am an LPCCS in Ohio, and I am a certified clinical trauma professional level 2.
Okay. What is your work setting and population?
I own a group practice, and I primarily focus on either juvenile sex offenders, or their victims. So I do both ends of the spectrum.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah. That way I kind of know what it kind of gets me in the mindset of who done it, but also then I can help the people they do it to.
Hmm. That is very, very intriguing. Very
Yeah.
intriguing. Why did you choose this specialty?
Um, Most juvenile sex offenders are people, well, kids, youth, adolescents who are victims themselves. No 8-year-old just wakes up one day and goes, I'm gonna have an orgy with my sisters. Nobody just, no, very, well, there are some. Very few do that. Most of them are coerced by adults. Most of them are groomed by adults. Grooming is now a crime in Ohio that I do have to report. It was not always a crime in Ohio. I do have a lot of kids that have been being groomed for years, and that was just not a thing that we could report and criminalize, but now we can, which is great. Um, but there was, I mean, I have kids who have been sold for drugs. I have kids who like, and then now as in foster homes, they are creating orgies, and they are now being deemed sex offenders. Are they sex offenders or are they also victims?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, what 13-year-old is a sex offender versus, okay, at 3 years old, mom sold them for drugs and has been selling them for drugs for 10 years. And now you're going to say they're a sex offender
Mm-hmm.
because you put them in a group home with a bunch of teenagers whose hormones are raging.
Yeah.
We maybe just set them up for failure because
Yeah.
we didn't assess them correctly
Mm-hmm.
in the children's services world. And then now they see me.
Yeah, those assessment processes are very important to
They
know
are.
where
But
you're
a lot
putting.
of things when, if you get taken from the only home you've ever known and the only place you've ever known, you're probably not spilling all your deepest, darkest secret to the lady
Mhm.
who took you away from your parents or your grandparents or your aunt that you were randomly staying with.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to spill the tea until you get to me.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. I feel so sorry for those kids.
Yes. And so, then they get labeled a sex offender or a potential sex offender, and then I assess, and then trauma comes out often. And part of sex offender treatment is trauma treatment.
Hmm.
There is actually, if you do true sex offender treatment, 2 chapters of the book is trauma treatment.
Hmm.
Um, so is it really that these kids are true sex offenders or are they traumatized? And
Hmm.
they are hypersexual
Hmm.
because of sexual abuse.
That's so I never really delved into the kid sex offender because I you don't really hear about it a lot. So
No.
I never actually I never thought about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my thing is, can we get to them young enough before they're 30 and offending?
Mm-hmm.
If I can get to the 8-year-old boy who, ended up in foster care or ended up in a situation, because he's being harmed himself and is touching people or pulling down his pants on a bus or, something, and it turns out he's being abused before he's 30 and doing something to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
before he doesn't realize what he's doing is wrong, and then all of a sudden now he's 30 and taking it out on people.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's true.
So,
Yeah.
like, can we correct the behavior and then work through his trauma?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. What are some joys and challenges that you face in this population?
I do have parents who bring them to me before we catch a charge,
Mm-hmm.
because they know that that's my specialty is sexual behaviors. I just sometimes word it as sexual behaviors, versus offenders. And so they hear about me as a sexual behavior, through the grapevine. So it'll be like, oh, like a school will say your kid keeps pulling his pants down and telling kids to suck his penis and things like that on the bus. Here's a sexual behavior therapist, is how they word it versus offender, even though it's offender behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are red flags. Are you sure your kid isn't being abused somewhere? Like at soccer practice, like they have a lot of coaches, like he's in a lot of activities that you maybe drop him off at. He goes to people's houses. Um, yeah. But I do have a lot of parents who are very open and willing to discuss behaviors, sex at a very young age. Obviously there's always is there, concerns that, he's feeling like maybe he's out of place or there or she's out of place or, you know, there's obviously, the hypersexuality. Is this something that maybe runs in the family? Are we looking at an early bipolar, like a mania type of thing, depending on their age?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something the family is prepared for? Things like that. Is it more of like an impulse control thing, like an ADHD? Like there's so many, they're kids. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're kids. Um, and then, so like, I do have a lot of families that are willing to just be like, help, please help, because we don't want it to be a charge. I think I do see a lot of concern come from the system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we do we do charge boys a lot faster than we do girls with
Okay.
sexual behaviors. When there is a concern of one child touches another child, you do call CPS. That is what you do. You say a child has touched another child. There was an imbalance of power, whatever that is. Like whether it be a niece, nephew, like cousins, whatever. Somebody touched somebody. What happens typically is CPS is called, and if it's a boy touching a girl, a charge is typically brought on that boy.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is, and as long as they complete treatment, the charge goes away. As long as they complete treatment, they work on their trauma, they do what they need to do with me, the charge goes away. As long as they don't reoffend, the typical, which is great because they get help, right? They get help. But that requires parents or family members, guardians, whoever's raising that child, requires them to seek help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Requires them because CPS is involved. But when a girl touches a boy or a girl touches another girl and we call CPS, typically nothing happens.
Mm.
They say, put her in therapy, and they close the case,
Mm-hmm.
which then does not mandate therapy.
Mm.
So if we're not, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody needs a charge, but if we're not mandating these girls into therapy, into sexual treatment, sexual behavior to work on any trauma that they may have, what is stopping female predators from
Mhm.
growing up and continuing to be predators?
Yeah.
Because we're stopping boys. We're attempting to stop
Hmm.
boys from being predators, which is great. But why are we not mandating? Because a lot of the girls I see then disappear. They come once or twice and they disappear because, like, oh, well, she's got soccer, or her brother joined track and now I can't get her there, or we're busy, or I don't think she really meant it. She did. She meant it. I assessed her.
Hmm.
I did the sex offender assessment. She scored. Like,
Hmm.
there's a percentage. She has trauma. She needs to work through this trauma because it obviously impacted how she reacted when she was alone with another child.
Hmm.
Um, or you need a safety plan in place and you're not following the safety plan at home because Children's Services isn't involved saying you have to follow a safety plan at home because they're not coming to your house to make sure your home is safe.
Hmm.
So you're not keeping her safe or other children in your home safe. So these girls are getting, in a sense, away with it. How do we know these girls are not growing up to then become offenders in a way? Uh,
Hmm.
or if they do have a level of hypersexuality, how do we know that, they're not growing up with a level of hypersexuality that's getting them in trouble long term and causing long-term mental health issues or getting them in negative, power and control abusive relationships,
Hmm.
which is then going to cause more trauma on their end, which then impacts incarceration rates
Hmm.
potentially because if they're showing offending behavior as a young child,
Yep.
they're more likely to fight back,
Hmm.
which means, and in the cops I know around here, if you both got a mark on you, then you're both going. So if
Hmm.
she defends herself, she's gone. She's got a DV case.
Mm.
Like, we're not setting these girls up for success when they're the offenders.
Mm.
And then who's to say that if she ends up with children, she's not gonna she's gonna be the mother that protects her children from
Hmm.
offenders.
Yeah. Because she
Or
has.
the mom that sells her kid.
Hmm. Yeah. That's those are 100% true questions.
Yeah.
So, so what are some of the treatment interventions that you use?
So I use the Pathways program, which has trauma involved, which does a lot of narrative therapy. I use a lot of DBT, CBT combinations, because especially with adolescents, I don't believe that it's pure thoughts or pure feelings. Because DBT is that I have a feeling, so I act on it, or I have my thoughts controlling me 100% of the time. They're adolescents. Nothing controls them 100% of the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing is 100% with them. And then it's a lot of motivational interviewing with them because they're adolescents. Um, and then, I mean, with the pathways, it's also a lot of psychoeducation.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of psychoeducation because
You and
they
you
know what they don't
mindfulness.
know what they don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, and the court system is scary if they end up with the court system.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a lot of education on like, okay, how do we like with DBT and mindfulness, like how do we use breathing techniques and how do we do that in front of the judge and when we're talking to the judge and how do we and then with CBT, how do we not all or nothing think and catastrophize?
Hmm. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
with narrative, it's how do we get through our trauma and then how do we create a better narrative for our future?
Hmm.
Because this defining moment that happened, and hopefully it's a one-timer, because usually if I get them in private practice, it's a one-timer. If they're like a multi-offense, they end up in inpatient. But like if I get you, this one moment in time does not have to define you.
Hmm.
And I've had kids successfully complete, and like some of them stay with me just for like individual therapy that they've moved far past. and they just have regular, counseling with, to work past and make sure like their trauma doesn't isn't defining their future. But like, how are we going to make sure that what has happened to you, and then that defining moment of that ended getting you here with, the sexual behavior, then has not is not defining the rest of your life and your future. Like, how do we
Mhm.
create that narrative moving forward?
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. So, what are your perspective on traumatic growth when you're dealing with the demographics that you deal with?
So I just look for progress over perfection, which is
Hmm.
more DBT. Because it's not linear. We're gonna have setbacks. We're gonna have we're gonna have moments, we're gonna have, whether it be dates, we're gonna have something. We're potentially always gonna have, little bits of triggers
Hmm.
that happen. We go through things like, the five senses and, the grounding, which we do, and we go through the five senses with the narrative. What five senses do you remember for each of these things? Um, but I have a sheet that I like to do of when it comes to their growth. That's like a face cut in half of like, who were you before and who do you want to be after? And
Hmm.
how do we get there in that growth? And, then what do we think is gonna be that struggle to get there?
Hmm.
Um, and knowing that growth is it's just not linear. It's gonna come with hardships, but then having kind of that. So in substance use, when I did substance use, there was always a relapse prevention plan.
Yeah.
And I do a mini relapse prevention plan because growth is not linear. When we slip, when we trigger, what is our relapse prevention plan?
Hmm.
And I think a lot of trauma counselors don't always think of that,
Hmm.
because our clients are like, I'm doing so much better. And it's like,
Yeah.
you are, but in 6 months, that date is coming back, like, or like that date, that thing happened, or, like, you're doing so much better. Or like, they don't, or like, all of a sudden you walked in and there was that smell of the man who did the thing to you, and because somebody's cologne matched, or like, you just, like, the small things you don't realize.
Yeah. That's
And
good.
it's like, okay, what is the relapse prevention plan?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So, do you integrate any spirituality into your treatment?
It's whatever my clients.
Okay.
I see the Jewish population. I've been getting a lot of Jewish populations lately. I'm not sure. I guess I met a rabbi at a function one time. I don't remember meeting him. I met a lot of people at that function, and I guess we got along really well, and so he's been sending me people. Um, so I've been getting a lot of the Jewish population around here. Um, They're really fun to work with. Um, I have, I mean, a lot of Christians. So like if they, prayer, things like that. So, but we do like coping skill cards, things like that at the very beginning, because if you don't have a list of coping skills, like going through your deep, darkest traumas is not going to be good for you. So it's whatever they want to put down. I'm also a yoga instructor. So if they're into yoga, or they're willing to just do yoga or try yoga, or I just call it moving meditation and mindfulness to trick people sometimes, um, then um, like there's obviously, like, for more like a sexual trauma, anything with the hips and hip release in yoga is better, and it brings out more emotions. So like pigeon, things like that.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if they're willing to try that, there's people who around here will lead somatic yoga classes that I recommend because they're trauma-informed somatic yogas.
Hmm.
There's also people around here that will lead trauma-informed martial arts. So if they're ready and want to feel more empowered in taking back their ability to kind of feel like they can fight for themselves. But it's trauma-informed, so it's not like it's just like the cops doing it around here, where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna put my hand on you without asking.
Yeah.
Um, so they have a women's mixed group, and then they have an LGBTQ plus group um, that runs, and so then I will sometimes refer them there too. Um, and then any sort of, so if they're willing to do any sort of like mindfulness meditations, things like that, I will do different meditations. If they have, I mean, any sort of spirituality that they would like to bring into it, I'm open to because we know that any sort of spirituality that you can connect to on any level, whether it be religious or non-religious, can help you get through
Yeah.
sort of traumatic event and just connect you and ground you.
Hmm.
Um, it's an individualized thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. You're definitely following the clients, you know, especially younger kids. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I always ask them, I'm like, in the assessment, it's like, do you identify with any religion or spirituality? And they're like, yeah, I'm this. I'm like, are you that or are your parents that? Like, are you
Yeah.
that or are you supposed to be that? And then they're like, well, I'm supposed to be that, but I think. And I'm like, all right.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. That's smart. That's very smart. So, have you dealt with any vicarious trauma since you've been doing this?
Um, I think the biggest, mm, I don't know if I've had any like really vicarious trauma. I think I've been like close.
Hmm.
I think the biggest like thing, I think the closest thing I had is I had an entire family. It took actually like a group of us. They had to send in like a group of us counselors to this family. Um, it was complete incest.
Mm.
It was the great grandparents. They were from Appalachia and they moved into Cincinnati. The great grandparents were cousins, and then everybody just kind of kept procreating with each other. Um, because you don't know what you don't know, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and eventually the kids started at a public school and were very hypersexual and which got CPS called. Um, so you can imagine. Um, and it turned out everybody was very intellectually disabled and very not so well formed physically either at parts. But they were unaware educationally that you are not supposed to sleep with family members.
Mm.
They did not they don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
It was normalized in the family. Like families just have secrets, and that was just their secret. Um, and you just start touching people once they turn like 2 or 3.
Mm.
Um, it was a lot of education, a lot of, and I don't know if I think like in order to like set boundaries with myself on and like attempting to assist myself in not crossing that vicarious trauma, it's coming to that understanding of a lot of people don't have education
Hmm.
a lot of times. Um, and it's trying to come at where things have stemmed from and looking at the systems in place. Because that one could definitely, especially as like when you do a certain trauma assessments, especially when they run that deep systemically,
Hmm.
and especially when it comes to sexual abuse, and we just sat there and it was just one family member after another after another. It was like a full day of just like next, because we did in-home therapy at the time. Um, so it was like 2 or 3 of us and we just cranked them out. Because I couldn't drive. Um, so it was just trauma assessment after trauma assessment after trauma assessment, but these people did not feel like they were traumatized. because they didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you just felt so sad for them
Yeah.
because they truly didn't know. And then having to set up all these services and then all these safety plans and what to do with all these kids that were in the house because it wasn't just those kids, it was other kids and people were pregnant and then you're trying to figure out who the father was of these babies because everybody was doing things with each other and it was a lot to take in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to like not have that vicarious trauma, because I've had kids kill their grandparents, I've had kids kill animals, I've had kids torture animals, I've had kids attempt to burn houses down with their families inside. But this was like a whole level of like, this isn't like a brain imbalance of like they are like that nature versus nurture. This is just a truly generational, two people decided this was okay
Mm-hmm.
and generationally have decided we are going to continue trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And because they needed a better financial way of life to find work, they ended up moving to a place that got them caught because they had to send their kids to school. Like they just got caught. Like how many generations worth would this have gone?
Yeah. Yeah. That's traumatic.
So I think when it gets to me, I'm like, at least I'm here to put a pin in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to look at it that way to stop the vicarious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have that's circle of control. I have this circle of control at this point.
Mm-hmm. So what is something that you do to combat fatigue and burnout? Because I know dealing with the kids you deal with, it's a lot.
Yeah, they're fun. Um, I work out a lot. Get the energy out. Especially dealing with probation. Um, well, right now I'm doing my dissertation, so that's a lot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I hang out with my dogs. I got dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do yoga because, I'm a yoga instructor. Um, yeah, I just kind of hang out with friends. They're all counselors. My one specializes in also sex offenders, juvenile sex offenders, and youth in detention. So she gets it.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
who's in guilt, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
So we have like regularly scheduled brunches.
yeah, I bet. So, do you practice any type of spirituality, like anything like that?
No, I really don't have my own.
Okay. All
I mean,
right.
other than like the yoga, like there's obviously meditation at the end of yoga and things like that, but like no specific.
Mhm. Yeah, just mindfulness. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the youngest client that you've ever had?
3.
3?
Hmm. He kept trying to jump out the window and off the roof.
What was he trying to get away from?
The monsters.
Oh my God.
He said there was monsters. We got him some meds.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm trained in infant mental health too, so I can tell you if infants have been sexually abused.
Yeah, see, I want to do that. That's definitely
Yeah.
something that I want to do because I'm going into trauma therapy basically for children's and adolescents. And of course I'll end up seeing some adults who's had the trauma from being a child. So,
Yeah, I have some that are pre-verbal trauma.
mhm,
Yep.
yeah. So I definitely want to get into into that trauma field to be able to go into these places and spaces and help these kids because the kids are our future and they're going through a lot now. I don't know what happened the last 10 years, but it's been on the rise. And a lot of people are scared of counselors and they don't want to go to counselors. So how do you combat that, that not needing a counselor or not wanting a counselor when they're going through so much trauma?
Especially the teenagers, because they're usually forced to see me. Because the kids are a lot easier. Like the younger ones are easy. I can kind of trick them. I have games, I have toys, I
Hmm.
play with them. And then before they know it, they're just talking. Like, like I can play a game. Like I've had kids that will literally just death stare me and I'll just play a game by myself and then I'll like play the game wrong and they'll be like, "You're doing it wrong." And then they'll play with me because I'm doing it wrong. So I if
Hmm.
I play the game wrong, then they'll like a game that's obviously like I play Candyland wrong and then they're like, "That's not how you play." Or like I'll cheat with myself and they'll be like, "You can't cheat with yourself. You know how to play the game." And then they'll come and
Yeah.
show me how to play the game. Um so it's just tricking them. Their frontal lobe is not developed. So they're mad that you're cheating with
Yeah.
yourself because they're not playing. They're just sitting in the corner watching you. Um, but or like I have some kids that are just really low IQ, and so I'll just start playing with the dolls or my sand tray, and they'll be like, "That's not how you play with that. You can't
Hmm.
bury that there." Because they want to do it. And I'm like, "Well, you
Hmm.
do it then. I don't know what I'm doing. I just play dumb." And then they're like, "Oh no, this goes here and this goes there." And then all of a sudden they're playing out like mom beating dad or something.
Hmm.
Um, then you're like, "Oh, that's what happened last night."
Yeah. I was a preschool teacher for 11 years, and the stories that I would hear from the kids would make me cry. Because I'm like, they're four. Like,
Yep.
they shouldn't be seeing this or going through this. And it was so traumatic for me hearing about their trauma. I was like, and no one thought the difference. I used to have this girl who used to have asthma attacks on top of asthma attacks on top of asthma attacks, but she would come to school smelling like marijuana, so
Hmm.
mom was smoking in the car before she gets to school, and it's flaring up her asthma when she
Yep.
gets to school and she's having these attacks. And when you talk to mom like, hey, does anyone smoke around her? No, no one smokes around her. And I'm like, this child body is going through this because of you, not because of her. You're inducing this. Like, this is, you can't not smoke while she's in the car.
Right.
Like, this medicine costs money and we're going through 2 inhalers a month.
Hmm.
Like, this, but you rather pay for the inhalers.
Well, and that's what I found too, because like in my sand tray, I bought they have a pack of like it has like a marijuana leaf, it has like a fake cigarette, it has like there's like a drug paraphernalia pack.
Hmm.
And the younger kids just they know exactly what everything is. They're like, "Oh, my mom has one of these at home. Oh, my mom smokes these. Oh, look at the beer. My dad has all these." They're the
Mm.
ones that play the most with it because like they're like, "Oh, I know what this is." And I'm like, "You shouldn't, but okay, tell me about
Mm.
that. What are you gonna do with that marijuana leaf?" And then they bury it because they're angry with it, or they put it because then I also got the death pack because I had a bunch of grief kids. Um, because I do the suicide response at the school sometimes. So I have the death pack. And so they'll like put it in the little the coffin and be like and bury it in the sand because they hate like the marijuana leaf or the cigarettes that their parents smoke or the beer that their dads won't stop drinking.
Hmm.
I'm like, that's interesting. Keep doing that. Like, show me.
Wow. What is like one lesson that you've learned, like from going to school and becoming a therapist and not really knowing what you're going into? Like, what is one lesson that you've learned about trauma therapy that you would, share to people who want to get into the field?
Everybody that you work with is going to have something. That doesn't mean they automatically get a PTSD diagnosis.
Hmm.
Like that doesn't automatically mean they have PTSD. They have to meet the criteria because I feel like everybody just wants to hand out a PTSD diagnosis.
Hmm.
Um, but that doesn't mean that they don't have to work through it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Just because they don't meet the criteria for PTSD doesn't mean they don't have to work through it.
Hmm.
Because statistically, I think the last statistics that came out, it was like 85, 89% of people in this country have been through something that could be considered traumatic, but only like 20 something percent would truly meet the criteria for PTSD. But that
Hmm.
again does not mean they don't need to work through the incident that has happened.
Hmm. So do you diagnose any with complex PTSD?
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
and again, that doesn't mean that, just, and it could be, especially like, I have a lot of like young adults now that are realizing that their parents are not the greatest people, and have been managing with the, book, what is it, the Immature Parents book,
Hmm.
that has been out now for a little while, and realizing that, it may not be like full-blown trauma, but the way that they were raised has really impacted how
Hmm.
they act and how they see the world, and being able to move out, go to college, get some freedom has really lowered their cortisol levels, lowered their stress levels, lowered the way that they, their anxiety levels. And yeah, it wasn't a full-blown PTSD moment, but they realized that when they do go home to visit, or if they stay the weekend, or if they stay spring break with their parents, it is almost like a trauma response. They can feel their vagus nerve. Like, it is a fight or flight kind of thing. They can tell that when their parents are getting off of work, and they can see the time, and they can realize like, oh my gosh, they're coming home. And it is almost like when they were a child again, being like, Dad's coming home from work. And
Hmm.
it is almost like a PTSD response, like, oh my gosh, he's coming home from work, and he gets home from work, he's angry, he's gonna go
Yeah.
grab a beer, and he's gonna, like like it's like a mini trauma response.
Yeah.
And it just because it's not full-blown PTSD doesn't mean it's like a mini trauma response happening in your body.
Yeah. Definitely. Awesome. Thank you so